Hi, Lesya. How are you doing?
Hi, Imran. I'm very good. Thank you. How are you doing?
Good. Happy Monday. Uh, it's a big week this week for I think all of us in the US, right? So,
Yes,
and you're calling from where? I forgot. New York?
I'm in New York. I'm in New York. Yeah, yeah. Being here, hoping for the best.
It's this.
Yeah. Very
It's
stressful time.
yeah. It's one of those crazy weeks I've been watching on Twitter, and I'm like, oh my God. And what makes me interesting of a conversation today with you and those who are going to listen. I realize with this whole new election that's going to happen, we're not going to talk politics, but it's like that means there's going to be a lot of economic shift. There's going to be a lot of job market shift. There are going to be a lot of
Mhm.
regulations. And I think you have a great perspective that you can bring when it comes to, what you're doing at A Players. And
Yeah.
I think that could be high value. So before we dive into, I always leave it up to my guests to introduce themselves. Like I know Lesya Arnold, you're the CEO and the founder for A Players, where you're actually helping, people or companies with great talent, finding them the great and the best talent, whether it's startups or big companies. But over to you. I'm of course going to butcher it a little bit, so over to you.
Thank you, Imran. That's exactly a big part of what we do at A Players. So essentially, A Players is on a mission to help the impact-driven companies make the positive change through scaling their teams, through making the right matches in between different categories of market players, right? So we hire leaders with A-player qualities for those impact-driven tech startups. We also provide business assistance as a service, uh, junior talent with minimum to none experience, but with amazing A-player qualities, helping with sales, marketing, customer success, and things like that, helping companies scale. Because of those A-player qualities, making much bigger impact on companies and being very productive. We also build a community of impact-driven founders and investors. We've made a lot of connections, introductions between top founders and top VCs, angels, um, even between VCs and LPs. So we're building sort of an impact-driven community of A players with various roles in it.
No, that's I actually was on your side, and I'm like, there's VC and startups, there's also business assistants and the stuff that you're doing. So I want to piecemeal out. So there's a lot of stuff. Starting out with how do you define, like, you've been in this game for a long time. You've seen in many companies. I personally have seen a lot of leaders saying, we want eight players. And when you ask them, what the hell do you mean? They actually have these generic agnostic terms. I rather ask you, please help them define what A player is, but also tell the rest of us what does A player really means.
That's a great question. And, you know, um, sometimes I feel like different people have different definition for who a player is, right? And it's important, like, as a first step to think on that, what exactly that means, right? So the best short answer who an A player is, to me, comes from Jeff Smart, saying that it's someone, an A player is someone who has 90% chance to be in top 10% performers. So essentially, an A player equals top performer, right? But then what exactly that means to be a top performer? And is it a top performer in the company or is it a top performer in general, regardless the company, right? So we answer that question as that this is the regardless the company,
Yeah.
right? So it's a personality thing. And surely there is like wrong fit company wise, sometimes even role fit wise. And someone at the wrong role can be performing as not a top performer,
Hmm.
but still be an A player, right? So um, finding an A player does not uh, automatically excludes the need to make the right match with the company, with its company culture, and even with the role, right?
Yeah.
But there are so few people, very low percent of talent has those A player qualities on any given market.
Hmm.
And some markets just have higher percentage of those top performers, like Silicon Valley attracts
Yeah.
typically way higher percentage of A players than many other developing locations. But still, it's still very much a minority thing um, for talent to have those qualities. And being an A player is not about experience, not even about skills. It's about personality qualities,
Mm.
personal qualities, personality traits that makes someone an A player. Um, there are many of those, and I'm happy to go, as far in details as you would like me to, but I will just start with the top three qualities that
Hmm.
we're looking for in any talent that we hire, that we work with, and to be fair, even within companies, clients' companies, with people who we work with, because
Hmm.
we believe that working with players is the only way, to succeed. So the top three qualities that we identify is very high level of intelligence, extreme sense of ownership,
Hmm.
and extreme obsession with self-growth.
Yeah.
So, people who are every day in this mindset of today being better version of themselves as yesterday, people who constantly think about which lesson can I learn from this situation? What can I learn from this person? What else can I improve in myself? And these are not, just words. Like for people who are really in that mindset, you can ask them a question like, what did you learn last week? And they will, very quickly give you an answer. You will ask them like, okay, you met this person yesterday. What did you learn from this person? What this conversation made you think of? And they will essentially just have, a great deep answer. So again, it's not just like fluffy words. We look into practical confirmation of those qualities.
No, I totally agree. And I think what happens here, Lisa, is like when we see founders and hiring managers hiring, and you tell me if that's true. So I will give you a what I'm seeing, and you can be like, yes, no, or maybe sidetrack. Um, they would say in their job listing, we want A players. They're like, we want startup person, and they want the traits that you define, who's invested in self-growth, who's out there, great personality. But when they are going through that interview phase, it's most often, and this is one person's opinion, what I have seen, those who say they don't actually hire that. They actually hire the opposite. So basically, they're looking their doppelganger. Instead, it doesn't look like them. It's just like a different person. Um, What do you think is going on with that? Because you help companies and help talents to situate. What are some basically misses during the interview process that they're not able to hire A players or they
Mhm.
pivot and like I guess what's the challenge there that you're seeing?
It's a very complicated question. So there could be millions of reasons. Um, Starting from the fact that sometimes hiring managers think that they need to hire A players and they realize that they don't actually on the way of hiring those people, right? Sometimes it's a question of not really um, understanding what you're looking for, like on a practical level, making hiring mistakes, not being able to identify A players right. Sometimes it's inability to attract A players. Different companies have different position on the market that sets them, to hire those A players. As I mentioned, there's not enough A players for everyone, and so only limited number of companies are able to both attract and identify A players. So another interesting thing that I'm seeing now, in terms of trends on the market, is that way more companies, more startups, especially startups, uh, understand the value of hiring A players now. Uh, and more startups are actually able to hire A players now
Hmm.
more than, 2, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, right? So in 2021, it was probably the hardest for startups to compete with big tech and to hire A players. And it's not the thing that big tech companies hire only A players, but um, the big percentage of their talent is A players, right? And so, your position, how attractive you are on the market, um, depended a lot on your financial situation, in your, opportunities, and big tech was pretty much a
Yeah.
sexy place to work for in 2021. It's very different now.
Yeah.
So top talent is no longer that excited to work for big tech with all the layoffs and everything, let alone the fact that big tech companies are not that much hiring in the hiring mode anymore, right? And so startups are, for the first time ever in history, have the best time to actually attract those A players, right? Because it's much more exciting to work for a startup, for, successful startups, of course. I'm not talking about, yesterday born startups,
Yeah.
right? Um, but also, I feel like um, hiring managers started realizing this aspect of efficiency much stronger, um, with all the technology, AI and everything. We all understand that we've got to be extremely efficient. And hiring A players is extremely efficient because statistics shows that one A player is at least two, sometimes three times more productive
Yeah.
than a B player, let alone C players.
Oh, yeah. And I like how you're defining it because I think with the current unstoppable force of layoff that we're seeing, even I saw like bunch of PMs posting these content which was about they're like they were PMs and now they're content creators and they're like in October we had the lowest layoff or something and I'm like it's not over yet. Don't quote it. Though it's less, but when you compare to hundreds and thousand, you still have thousands, like easy 12, I think 10,000 plus people got unemployed or something. I can actually check that while I talk to you about it because I don't want to misquote. But that being said, it's a lot, right? And to your point, even actually I was reading on Blind, Lesya, the comps have changed for big
Yeah,
tech where they were offering 700-800K for a good, E5 or something around there. I could be a little bit on the higher roll up or roll down, whatever, round off. But now it's significantly down,
yeah,
closer to half a mil a year, which is still pretty good, but I know people who got 800, 900, right? And then sometimes their executive packages are crazy. And now often what I've been reading is all of them are scared to work
mhm,
for big tech. They're like, hey, I'm gonna get a job. What if I get laid off? And if the
mhm,
risk is same, I'd rather work for a startup. So I do agree with your point that most people are like, I want to work for a startup where it's not a seed, but like, it's a growing stage. It's like not the yesterday born, but like it's growing. We want to be part of the ship. Don't care about the comp because I'm looking for the future. With that being said, so seems like if I make this right, you work closely with startups. Is that
Yes.
right?
hmm We've
S-
we've hired talent for Wix, Grammarly, Reddit, lots of, known companies, but our passion and what aligns the most with our mission is hiring for early stage growing startups.
Yeah. Yeah, Grammarly, I would still count as a late stage startup. It's still a startup,
Yeah, yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
which is super cool. So that being said, by the way, I was looking, and so I don't have the updated number, but what it says there are at least 10,000 layoffs in October, right? So just want to quote that. But that being said, what are some traits that you have seen in startups precisely when they're hiring that they're really looking for besides the A-player aspect that like, hey, like I know there's some startups who move faster. What are some things or trends that you're looking at that these days that you've been trying to have in the last few months or for this year, startups are like, hey, we need this kind of person, agnostic of the role, could be
Mhm,
engineer, product, design, right? Um, what are you seeing in terms of the traits that they're really looking forward to?
mhm. Uh, I mean, what I would start with is that the expectations in everything has raised, right? So, even the companies who were already hiring A players, a few years ago, have raised their expectations for A players even more, right? And
Mm,
so, just like general bar for talent has raised significantly, um, and it, it's about everything. It's about um, skills, often about experience, but it's extremely much about personality and like those specific personal qualities, about fit with the company's culture, with the
mm,
company's values, right? So in 2021, when it was so difficult for companies to compete for talent, a lot of companies were going to compromise on either experience or skills or personality or altogether, but not anymore. So
mm.
companies really, especially companies that we work with at A Players, are not compromising. So those companies are looking for the best fit in all of these categories, right? So it's definitely much more difficult for talent,
Yeah.
but it's there is a big gap, right? So it's the most difficult for C players, even B players, right? So A player talent is in very different situation now. So they were always like a better situation, like everyone was headhunting them and offering them better opportunities. But the gap now is significantly bigger, right? So to
Mm,
your question about specific qualities, right? So those three qualities that I already named: high intelligence, ownership, obsession with self-growth, but a couple more. So companies are looking for even higher level of self-management, of self-motivation, even higher level of integrity,
mhm,
um, even higher level of curiosity, of analytical skills, on critical thinking, even higher level of communication skills, being able to work within the team as well as on your own, right? So both parts are very, very important. So yeah, it's just the expectation in everything in all of those categories has raised a lot.
And and the reason I asked is because I have a loaded question, and every conversation has this almost AI. How much has that changed? Because, some startups are really, really not hiring as many people they would usually.
Mhm,
They're compressing the talent stack, meaning
mhm,
if you have an engineer, software engineer who is really great, he's expected to do more by leveraging AI tools, everyday AI tools, GPT or so forth. Same as a product designer, you would have a UX research. I never ended up hiring any UX research because I'm like, I have Dovetail, I have AI, I have ChatGPT, and all these tools. I literally eliminated a role. Sadly, not eliminated, but I don't know the lack of what would be a better term. Same for product managers. There's a lot of headcount, right? That they're like, oh, we don't need five. If you're writing a PRD, you have GPT, or use Chat PRD, whatever. How are you seeing in terms of talent hiring and talent stack that has A shifted post AI, number one. Number two, how is that even also driving the skill sets when these startups are like, oh, you better know how to use these tools. Like we are 10xing you or 5xing you in terms of hope or expectation.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we're already seeing some roles being already eliminated,
Hmm.
right? So I would say that a role of a junior engineer is pretty much gone,
That's
you know.
true. Yeah.
hmm So companies like the lowest level of expertise in the engineering side that companies are hiring now is, middle experience level engineer, right? Like that would be the lowest. So
Yeah.
there is no more demand for junior engineers at all. Um, the role of an HR manager is pretty much gone as well. Uh,
I can say that.
Most companies have shifted to, people operations, like,
Yeah.
more like financial focused operations type of role, and basically distributed the role of an HR through various functions. So there is no more these like artificial roles created of like someone, creating, managing culture in the company, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, right? So it's a role of it's everyone's responsibility.
Yep.
The managers, the leads in the team, even the ICs, right? Like, so to create culture, to maintain, to grow it together. So the reduction of recruiters has been there a lot, right? So uh, with all the recruiting tools,
Yeah.
with lower demand for hiring, of course, right? So a lot of recruiting agencies just disappeared from the market, right? Um, a lot of internal recruiters, were laid off and never rehired. Um,
That's
Junior communications, junior marketer,
I
a lot of junior roles in general, I think, are eliminated.
even
hmm
even the sales development representation or representatives and business developer representatives, they've been impacted. Like I know this ad I've been seeing from this company, Artesian, and they literally have an ad, blunt ad. It's on 101. It says stop hiring humans.
Yes.
And while I don't like it or whatever I feel, I'm like also like, at least you're sticking to your guts, what you feel as a founder, but that tells a story, right?
That's
Like,
interesting. That's interesting. So, I'm not seeing it that much on the sales side. So
oh,
I wouldn't say that uh, junior sales talent, or especially, medium experience sales talent is that eliminated. I feel
hmm.
like sales AI is not on that level yet at
Oh,
all.
really?
Mhm. And the reason why I'm saying it, because I've been both basically a user and, a provider of the uh, sales growth, right? And so, as a user, we've tested various AI SDR tools for A players. We did not really see the result from those, even though it sounded amazing, that company, like the whole
Yeah,
idea, and how the company is actually selling their product with their own tool, right? But it kind of got my insight was that those AIs, they are tools, are amazingly selling AIs, they are products,
yeah,
but not really other people's products. It definitely did not really work for A players. But on the side of a provider of this service, we've had amazing results because our business assistants, who some of them are specifically focused on sales activities, and that's specifically lead generation, data entry, researches, all of the things that SDRs do, right? They've had amazing results bringing those results to their clients, to our clients, and our clients are extremely happy with their input.
Hmm.
We've got multiple feedback how this is the best that they've had. They've tried all these AI sales tools, didn't really get any results. But with our assistant, with human being who uses other tools as well to support them, um, got them 10x, 7x of the cost of the service that our client pays us, right? So the combination of a really smart human being, a very passionate human being
Mm.
who uses the right technologies, that was the
Yeah.
solution for our clients. So I'm sure those technologies will get to that point, at some point, but it's not really there yet. And I think the main reason for that is that there has to be something amazingly creative. We developed so much of not just, marketing ads blindness, but also sales blindness. So we're blind to cold emails totally. So the thing that needs to be done, the thing that our assistants do for our clients is very creative. So they do, all these creative researches, all these like personal touches automized to an
Yeah.
extent as much as possible, but still, touches that really feels as human. And that's the only way possible yet. Those technologies are not that creative yet as, human beings.
But do you feel like the role, so like how in sales they have SDRs in the top of the funnel, right? They're just like reaching out to people, vice versa, inbound, outbound, they have those roles. And then there's account executives. So what I feel, this is my perspective, and you can have more idea because you're in that space of hiring. I believe account executives are not going anywhere. You still need human touch points to sell. Maybe AAE can have multiple AI agents for the, you know, outbound. Now, you know how you have those emails that you send out automate? Maybe you can have that, acting as them, as their own avatar. But maybe you can reduce hiring a email marketer, right? Or a SDR, but you still need a salesperson who's still FaceTiming like this.
Yes.
Real moving person, unless you change that to Hey That's a different story. But like, so in that case, so what I'm hearing from you, you're like, no. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Second. Hmm, that's weird. Yeah, I have no idea what happened here. Literally, this has changed. But what was I was saying? Yeah, I realized what happened. So why I moved. So what you're saying is like, Emma, we're not seeing that much change in terms of hiring. Like we still are looking for more salespeople, even though these tools are out there, specifically in sales. But in engineering, you're seeing a steep talent compression of like, we don't need junior engineer, we need mid-tier engineers who have experience or a vast access to, experience when it comes to different technologies or so forth. That's my assumption or
So
takeaway.
almost. So I'm not saying that I'm not seeing a change in hiring for junior salespeople. I'm seeing
Hmm.
that. It's still somewhat reduced on the market. I'm just saying that we at A Players figured how to work with it, and we've amplified the value that our junior sales people can bring to our clients. So again, higher expectations for
Yeah.
everyone. So we figured a creative way to deliver 10x more value to our clients with both uh, increasing even higher the bar for those junior sales people, but also expanding it to full service. So we now package it as a service. So we hire top junior salespeople. We train them in
Wow.
our team, A players team, on all the best sales and not just sales technologies,
Yeah.
right? We match them with the client and we manage them. So managing junior talent can be,
Yeah.
really challenging. So you need to spend time and effort and resources for that, right? So we cover that. We figured ways to provide more value to the client and
Hmm.
bring them like to optimize their time and efforts for having that junior talent with them, but also to generate much higher results in sales for them.
That's pretty, like, I think if I were to do a startup again, I'd rather have that because this makes it easier to have somebody taking
Yes.
care and like grow the talent in the team. So changing terms, changing the composition. So startups come to you, right? And they're hiring a team of this, the talent pool that you have. What about VCs? So how closely, I know you have a community as well, and I think people should
Hmm.
join that community as well. But how do you work with venture capitalists, and what's been your
Hmm.
experience so far that what you're seeing on their trend
Hmm.
side?
Yeah. So a couple of ways. We hire A-player talent for them. We recently hired an amazing analyst for one of our VC partner, Geek Ventures, and we've hired an amazing principal for them a year ago. We're hiring another analyst for their team now. So we do the hiring for the VCs, for the organizations. We also hire talent for their portfolio companies. Again, speaking of Geek Ventures, we've hired for a big portion of their portfolio companies. We've hired key had key heads for their best performing startup that we also introduced them to 3 years ago. So sometimes like we start working with a company first and we see them as an amazingly growing successful company because they're founded by A-player founders, because they've had this experience of hiring A-players, of having that high bar, and we continue helping them hire more players or sometimes even like increase the bar of talent in their companies. And we see that is like really working out. And so once we feel confidence in the company, we can refer them to one of our partner VCs or VCs from our communities. And sometimes, there is a match and they would invest. And sometimes VCs connect us with their portfolio companies who are hiring talent or who need our business assistance services. We also connected some VCs with their now LPs. We've organized events talking about how to build successful business while focusing on making impact,
Yeah.
on making the world a better place. And that was in different formats, in big panels with like 100 top
Wow.
founders and investors in the room. But we also organized many more small curated breakfasts, again, discussing, all the aspects of building financially successful companies while keeping your focus on impact. And it's always so the community, all those community activities, all those events are always around how to combine financial success and impact.
No, that's pretty cool. The reason I'm asking is because I know you have both sides, and I was like very curious how that side works. But going back to a different uh, section, so election is happening, right? Um, there is a lot of change to expect. I don't know. I don't have the crystal ball to tell you who's going to win, but I know one thing: there's going to be change. What are
Yes.
you seeing? Someone who is I think you're closely aligned with whatever economic shift will happen because the companies are Like, oh, if it's a good economy, they're like, let's, this because this is a time when they're actually planning for the next year and they
Yeah.
will start hiring spree. What are you seeing some trends, some key insights that you have seen from your group of startups that you have worked with, venture capitalists? Because I think this is the more insightful media section that you can offer, maybe, if you want to. So, what are you seeing right now in terms of where is it today and where do you see it going, regardless of who might win?
Um, I mean, there is part like regardless, and there is part of not regardless, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, for sure. So I work a lot. I'm an immigrant myself. I work a
Mhm.
lot with immigrants. One of or two of our partner VCs in our portfolio focusing on investing in immigrants, right? So
Mhm.
I work a lot with immigrants, and
Yeah.
we all know that like if the election goes one way, it will be extremely hard for immigrants in,
Yeah.
all the possible ways, right?
Mhm.
So I wouldn't say that hiring is that much dependent on immigration now.
Mhm.
But it's still, like in my bubble, our community, um, there will be changes, right?
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of like where it's going, regardless the election results, I am absolutely sure that the trend of increasing the excellence bar in everything and the high expectation for talent will increase even more. That's especially because of the technology rise,
Mhm.
right? But and followed by the um, raise of the bar of efficiency, right? Like, so businesses are expected to be way more efficient.
Yeah.
I think another big trend that will be happening is um, disruption will become easier and easier, and we'll have more smaller companies, especially numbers wise, right? Number of people wise,
Yeah.
um, successful companies. So, there is this um, a lot of talk about building unicorns with 20 people, or even like, you know, the
1%.
craziest dream of one person unicorn, exactly. So we'll probably see um, quite soon. We'll see those like at least like 100 people, 50 people unicorns. Um, I think also the perception of success will be changing.
Mhm.
So I see this huge trend that is already happening, and we at A Players are impacting it with our whole passion, the change to impact first. And so I believe that there will be more and more expectations for companies to be not just financially successful, but also impact driven,
Mm.
also creating real positive impact for the world. It
Yeah.
will be no longer enough to be just financially successful as a company, to be well respected in a
Yeah.
society. I believe that we'll start equally respecting both parts, and not just respecting, but expecting companies to have both components, be financially successful, but also make positive change, make positive impact.
That's a very interesting take. I don't know. I haven't like seen that, but I do feel like it has become a de facto for every startup to have like some revenue. So what you're saying is not hard for me to believe that it's like, oh, you should be making money, yeah, and grow. Yes, that's what we give you money for. But what's your purpose? What's your impact?
Mhm,
I
mhm,
think that is
mhm.
something, especially with AI. I don't know if you saw, but I saw this post that this dude created a fake AI event. Everybody showed up. I forgot where this was. In Dublin, I believe. A fake AI event for Halloween. Thousands of people showed up. They thought there was going to be a Halloween parade. It was nothing. And I'm like, what I'm trying to make sense of is like, Yeah, like if there's another AI company, what change are you bringing? What impact are you bringing? How are you making society a better and a safer environment?
Yeah.
That I truly, I think you're on spot on that one. I'm actually gonna hopefully that happens. But I know we're getting on time, so just want to go back to one thing is like, can you tell me one last thing? You help VCs, you help startups, you help individuals get connected to the right company. You've hired for companies like Grammarly, top startups around the world. What is that one takeaway that you would be like, Imran, I think talent or maybe startup or VC must know this. And that will basically help them in a sense. Could be anybody at this point, but what would be that one takeaway or yeah, takeaway, I would say.
Um, so like takeaway on like af after this conversation, like
Yeah,
what?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, takeaway because I see A players, right? And what the stuff that you're doing is really amazing. I do find it really valuable that what you're doing. It's helping a lot of startups. You're also helping VCs, and I think in this world of layoff, we actually need more of this. So it's like helping all this talent not being misplaced, right? Um, but you have seen the Trinity, right? You've seen the talent, the startups, the VCs. And what is your takeaway? Like something that you could be
Yeah,
like, if someone wants to take away from this podcast, what is that one thing that you would be
yeah,
like, this is this thing, Imran, and I think
yeah.
they need to sit with
Hmm.
this and think about it.
Yeah. Okay, I would say that um think about um this script, right? So first of all, think whether you need A players for whatever you're doing. So whether you're investing in startups, whether you're hiring for your leadership roles, for whichever roles in the company, first of all, sit and think whether you really need A players. If you answer yes, go figure out how to attract those, go figure out how to identify those, and do whatever it takes to get there. Not everyone needs A players. A lot of companies do need to hire A players. A lot of VCs do need to invest in A player founders. Not everyone needs, and by far, of course, not everyone can. But if you answer positively to question whether you need A players, do whatever it takes to both attract them and be able to identify them right. It might sound, easier than it actually is, right? So it's a whole process. There
Yeah.
is a lot of resource put into identifying A players and attracting A players. But if you truly need A players and you're able to get them, you will just skyrocket your results.
No, and I would also add like if you truly need A players, reach out to you, like because everybody needs help. And this is not a plug-in, this is not promotion. I tend to make sure like people when they come on the podcast, they listen to it, take something, and the guest is here. You know what's funny? This is a sidetrack thing, let's say, like most people are just literally afraid to reaching out. And that is so bizarre. The worst thing you will get is a reply. The best thing you can get is a reply. So if companies which who are listening to founders or startups or VCs at this point reach out to you, I guess also like you can actually help them. I'm actually gonna
Yeah, happy to
recommend you to
chat.
some VCs that have
Thank
like
you, Imran.
they reached
Appreciate it.
out to me. But no, this was great for me. Let's say like to understand the A players, what it is, what have you been doing, and you've been doing great. It's so exciting to have you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Imran. I enjoyed our conversation. Great questions, and it was very pleasant to be at your podcast. Thank you. I appreciate it.